You just couldn't help yourself, could you, Justin Trudeau? You had to weigh in, sound woke, sound all feministy when you decided to make comment about the Montreal Canadiens drafting Logan Mailloux.
As a lifelong Habs fan, I have to say I am deeply disappointed by the decision. I think it was a lack of judgment by the Canadiens organization. I think they have a lot of explaining to do to Montrealers and to fans from right across the country.
Now, of course, Mr. Mailloux did some stupid things. He was playing overseas in Sweden and he showed his teammates some, shall we say, more than salacious photos of a young woman that he had been seeing. Now, this isn't one of those sorts of instances of boys will be boys because Mailloux was caught. He was held accountable. He actually went so far as to say, I know I'm a pretty good prospect in the NHL draft, but my actions should dictate that I shouldn't be drafted. Well, he was anyway. The talent was there, and this young, very young man made a mistake, and we think that he's going to learn from it. But you, Justin Trudeau, decided to show your dismay and your shock. Now, this is one of those sorts of instances when you should have stayed out of it because your hypocrisy is showing. Remember Gropegate? Remember that journalist when you said, well, if I knew she was a journalist, I wouldn't have said the things I said? Remember she was the one that you referred to as saying she experienced it differently? Not to mention all your other questionable personal choices, like how many times you dressed up in blackface. But in this instance, we know that you have a desire to shore up your fake feminist bona fides. But this young hockey player, now drafted, and will eventually play in the NHL, and we wish him a successful career, did learn his lesson. He was held accountable. But what about you, Justin Trudeau? Were you ever held accountable for the very actions that you admitted to doing when she, quote unquote, experienced things differently? We can feel it, we can smell it, and certainly the money is flowing, Prime Minister Trudeau, as your MPs are crisscrossing the country spending money. Just in the last 2 weeks alone, there have been over 24 spending announcements in all corners of the country, all getting in line for a federal election. You're spending Canadians' money like it's going out of style. We know you're really itching for an election, perhaps to be called mid-August for a September 20th election date. That's sort of the sweet spot your political minds are thinking. Canadians are generally happy. The vaccination rollout is working. So many Canadians have gotten their first jab, and even more are getting their second, which is all very positive. But there's a fourth wave that could potentially be coming. We could have yet another big problem, deathly problem on our hands when it comes to COVID. So you want to get to the polls before that happens. We know this isn't very complicated. A little bit of political strategy, we understand it. But now you're out there spending what is amounting up to billions of taxpayers' dollars in leading up to this federal election that Canadians don't want. Canadians don't want an election in the summertime, but we know from a political perspective, you do. So is that election coming sooner rather than later? Just call it. You've got your Governor General installed. The MPs are out spending money. You're continuing to weigh in on issues that really don't hold your government accountable. So the timing from that perspective is good. But here's the little wrench in the system. Your opposition parties are starting to gain a little bit of momentum on you. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, has a very clear plan for his electoral success, and that's looking at different social media platforms like TikTok, for example, where he is having extraordinary success. He's trying to reach out to younger voters that will come and support the NDP. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is even starting to gain just a bit of momentum. The last public opinion polling shows that even the Conservative leader has gained a little bit on you. Heck, even the Bloc Québécois is seeing a bit of a bump. So I know you're watching those polls very closely. So the question for you, Justin Trudeau, is when is the election happening? Is it going to happen sooner rather than later? And just quite frankly, why not just call it? We always want to hear from you. Please click in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.